Hi, welcome to Zamora Woodworking. This is Nick. Please excuse the poor lighting this time around. I had to move all my lights and everything else to a different room. I'm waiting on my journeyman upgrade, so it's a completely different table over there. I'm currently making a video on how I'm building that. Today I was going to go over just some beginner things, some good questions I've seen a lot of people have on the forums, and different ways to conceptualize it, think about it, especially for those of us that aren't computer minded and don't exactly know how the machine goes and they just want to get it started. So things about homing, probing, your probe dimensions, your material zero, the origin, what happens with your dust boot, how the screens keep getting hit, stuff like that, to hopefully help people along. If you find anything helpful with this, if you could like and subscribe, that's one of the best ways to let me know that I'm doing the right thing. I mean, big creators, they don't really ever notice, but I mean, 1-2 extra subscribers is just a huge help. You have absolutely no idea what that means to me. It lets me know that what I'm doing is helping some people out there. Comment down below if you have any other questions or want anything else covered. I'll walk through whatever I have knowledge in and give you the best knowledge to the best of my ability, hopefully get you going down the right path. Without further ado, whenever you start up your machine, a big thing that you're going to be doing every single time is homing your machine. And you may wonder, okay, well, what is that? Why do I do it? How do I do it? Whenever you start it up, you'll be greeted by a screen either on your microcontroller here or on your laptop if you have that hooked up to it. But it'll say, hey, do you want to home it now? And if you click OK, it'll go through the homing cycle. First, it'll move your Z up. Then it'll move your X all the way to the left. Then I'll move your Y all the way forward. What you need to do prior to doing that is make sure, this is what I've always made sure to do, and if you do the same thing every single time whenever you start it, you shouldn't have any problems, is make sure that there's nothing underneath these rails. For a while there I was being really sloppy and I had like screws and stuff like that sitting around there, are little tiny nails. They will get caught, they will dive in there, they will mess things up. Make sure that everything is cleared off. Make sure that the front of your dust boot is off. You leave this on here, when it comes all the way up here, it will hit your screen and will knock it off. Take it off of there. Also check your screen. Move your screen to the side. I know this isn't the best fix in the world. There are other ones that other people have done to make sure that your screen doesn't get knocked over. If you have the bigger screen, you really need to be cautious. The smaller screen doesn't seem to be too crazy. You know, the mechanical leverage that it gets from a giant screen out here and it hits it versus this one isn't too bad. And then, you know, you have a bigger screen, heavier, it's gonna fall. Crack it, bad day. Onefinity seems to be really good about helping people out with that. But anyways, getting back to what I was saying, if you're gonna home it, the other thing that I like to do is everything's clear. I mean, besides this stuff, but that stuff stays there. It is all clear under here, all clear under there. I don't have anything that's going to pinch there, don't have anything that's pinched up. What I like to do, so I don't get surprised and I don't have to run for the oh shit button, is bring this guy forward, press yellow, make you go faster. Bring it a little short, and then make sure that nothing's touching the controller. Look at these areas right through here. And I know you can't see, but on the back side here, make sure that they are all nice and clean, okay? On both sides. Maybe a little toothbrush, something like that, obviously with no toothpaste on it. Maybe a brand new toothbrush and you put a little WD-40, or not WD-40, 3-in-1 oil. Don't use WD-40, they don't like that. 3-in-1 oil. Clean it off, and same thing for going up, but especially this front. So say you have a bunch of material caked on this side. You did great on this. What's going to do is when it homes out, this side's going to suck all the way here, this side won't, and then your machine's going to have a lot of extra stress because I know this is exaggerated, but your machine's tilted like this moving along. Not good. You just really don't want that to happen. I promise you, you won't be happy. Also here, make sure that these are all pretty clean. I mean, you can see that there's an inset in there, so it's not the end of the world. Now the way this machine does find its home is very different from a lot of other machines, and I truly do like it. What it does is it slowly ramps up and it just hits the mechanical limits of each way it's moving. And the microcontroller, the little Raspberry Pi that's inside the box, the controller box, it looks at the motor current, and whenever this thing stops, it hits here, the motor current spikes and it goes, oh, well, it hit the stop. Okay, cool. And then it goes this way, it hits the stop, and it goes, okay, cool, we hit that stop, and we hit this stop. And from that, it knows, from going all the way up, it knows how far it can go down because that's pre-programmed in the controller. So when it hits over here, if I were to, I could lie to the machine and I could move it over here, and I'm not going to do this, but if you held really tight or put a clamp on here or something else and stalled this machine out, the machine is only as smart as you operating it. So if I stalled it out right here and held it and did not allow this to move, the microcontroller would see the spike. It would think that this is your 0 position. It would think it has 32 inches to go this way, which obviously is not the case. But the machine does not know that. Some machines, especially lesser quality, have little tiny switches that are located here. So this thing will go all the way until when it hits that switch, and once it hits it, it notices. I don't really like that because with those switches, they can mess up and not work, or maybe they fall off, or maybe they move too far this way or whatever. And this will be a runaway train and just keep trying its hardest, and you'll have to run for the oh shit button. At least if it's looking for motor current, if it gets bound up, just like I said, if I bound it up, if I held on as tight as I could, I do not recommend anyone ever do that. But if I did, it would see the spike and it would assume that's 0. It didn't break anything. The only thing it did was kind of piss you off because, oh man, that isn't the right 0. Not a big deal. You know, you clean off whatever's in the way, run it again. So with that, you may not get your perfect 0, but you're also not going to break your machine. Now, when I do home it, so I got it pretty close. Obviously, you don't want to start it right next to it. I think it has a certain amount of space it expects to see prior to seeing the spike. So I keep it, you know, right around there, giving enough space to go up. So I know that the only way it's going to move is it's going to go up first, it's going to go over, then it's going to come towards me. There's nothing in the way, nothing I have to worry about, nothing's going to break, so I will, on the controller, click OK, let's home. So, running up. Oh, saw the spike. Okay, cool, now it goes this way. Saw the spike. Okay, and I think some of you up there are wondering, well, why do I have to home? You know, like, doesn't make any sense. Why doesn't it just know exactly where it's at? This is stupid. I shouldn't have to home every single time. And what is homing? So your controller is super smart in the fact that if you give it the right parameters, it will do everything you want it to do. It's also dumb in the fact that it doesn't know if you, say, held right here and did something stupid, because if this took it as a 0, me holding right here, it would think I have 32 inches of travel this way, because the full travel was at 32 1/4, so it thinks it has 32 1/4 that way. So it would slam on that side. It would think that, but it doesn't. So right now, since I did set my zeros properly, when I go all the way across, it's going to stop before it hits. And if I did this prior to homing, this would hit, it would make a really nasty sound because your machine has no idea where the hell it's at. It just doesn't know, which is fine. That's why you home it, and then after that it goes, in the software it says, all right, so from wherever I home at, I have 32 1/4 inches this way. I don't know what Z is exactly, but it knows all of these different distances it has. So a good way to conceptualize this that I thought of is, picture you're in a room, right? A 32 foot by 32 foot room. You're just dropped in there. You saw it. You know exactly what size it is. All of a sudden, somebody turns out all the lights. You need to figure out where the hell you're at in this room. You have no idea because they spun you around in circles, turned off the lights. You're like, I don't know. So you would blindly just slowly walk to the edge of the wall, and then you'd walk all this way to find your corner. Now, once you get to that corner, you know, I have 32 feet I can walk this way, 32 feet I can walk this way. That is essentially what your controller's doing, and it's also doing the same for the Z-axis, but I couldn't find a cool way to think of that. So it takes that and it gives you what you need to make the machine run. Now, material 0, right? Why do I have to zero on my material? And, you know, it's just a pain. This is stupid. It should just know. I put my material down. It should know it. Well, the machine knows that it needs to build something or do something or whatever you want, but it has no idea where this is. Even in your software, if you program it, it's not going to know. You have to put a material zero, which is different from your homing. So your material zero in your program, you can select either bottom left, 0, top right, bottom right, whatever it is. The machine, once you tell it one of these points, it knows where to do everything else, but it needs some sort of reference to where I place this, because the machine has no idea, did I place it up here, did I place it up? It does not know where this is. It's blind. There's no cameras, there's no AI, there's no nothing, which is fine, because we can do that part. It's not that hard. A lot of people like to use a probe. That's what I use. With a probe, it's just a 2-wire system. There's a send and receive, right? With these, you put it onto your collet and you touch your bit to it. When you do, you complete a circuit. A lot of people have broken these wires, this and that. It's not a big deal, just solder them back on. It is just a 2-wire system. What I really do like that they have you do is whenever you probe Z, they have you touch this first, because I've ran into cases where I had this sitting down, it said, okay, touch your probe to the bit. Touch, and I'm like, what the hell, why is it not? Oh, I'm an idiot, I forgot to do that. And in that case, if they had not added that in there, this thing would just be pushing down as hard as it could for as long as it could, which is really 3/4 of an inch, because that's set so it only goes so far. I think it's around 3/4 of an inch, which is good. Now, things that you need to be careful of when you do probe, is your bit coated? Is it a brand new bit? Because if there's a coating on there, the electrical signal from that will not make it through. There have been people that have wondered, you know, when they're touching here, if that is not clean metal, it won't make the circuit complete, it won't work. So whenever this probe is used, you see how it has this indented area here. That is meant, so if I'm using bottom left, you put the indented area here and run it against there. Whenever you probe, you can put this, put it on your collet obviously, and have your probe touch down in this circle. What it'll do is it'll touch down the circle, go up a hair, touch down just a little bit to make sure I got it just right, moves over and it touches here, and then it touches real slow, goes over and touches here. It might be the opposite way with these two. It might be this side first and this side. It doesn't truly matter. What it's doing is figuring out exactly where to go, and you're wondering, well, why the hell is it touching out here and here? Like, the edge of my material is right there. There are settings in your controller that know the exact distance of this, and when you say probe X, Y, and Z, it's assuming you're using this probe. So when it hits here, it subtracts that and gets your exact coordinate to this point right here. When it hits here, it subtracts that, gets to that point. So what you do need to do is check these distances here and make sure that they are correct, whether you're using freedom units or metric, and make sure that they are correct in your software. What I found was my Z probing height, this guy was off just by a bit, and I think doing this in metric is actually, I hate to admit it, better. But it was off, so I added that in because every time I was cutting, I was going just a little bit lower, a little bit, it never worked right. Whenever you're using your probe, a lot of people, I used to do this when I first started, I used this to do my X, Y, and Z. I only use this for Z now. What I do is I just move my my router, like usually I don't do it to where this is the exact size of my piece. I leave like a 1/4 inch wiggle room all the way around. But what I'll do is bring this on over and then slow down to a slower level. So right there, I'm pretty much in line there and there. All zero, or material zero, my X and Y prior to running. Then it knows that this is the 0 corner for your project. Well, then I want to do my Z. Make sure, you see how this is raised. Make sure if you probe just Z, or just Z in general, that you don't just set it like this, because in the software, it takes this measurement. So let me zero these out. If you look, 15.17 millimeters. It does not take that. That's 18.73. It does not take that into account. So if you do that, you're going to be cutting air for a while. I'm pretty sure. Either that or I'm the exact opposite. You're going to cut an extra. But I'm pretty sure you'll be cutting air. So make sure that the way I like to do it is if I'm just probing Z, I put it upside down like this and then drag it around. Make sure that my material's flat, which this is a crappy board to do it on. Make sure it's flat, then just select probe Z. Whenever you probe Z though, don't have this more than I think it's 3/4 of an inch too high. Because what it'll do is it'll keep going, and once it touches, then it'll go up at just a hair and then touch again to make sure it gets it fine and perfect. However, if this has to travel more than, I believe it's 3/4 of an inch, an E-stop will come up, you'll lose all of your settings, your zero position, all that, everything throws up because it doesn't want a runaway condition where, you know, this thing popped off after you checked it. This is pushing down, it's lifting your whole thing up, bending your machine to hell. So it's a good thing. It is a very, very good thing it does that. Now that you know it, it should never happen again. So put that in there and then make sure, like I said, with the coating. Some bits, let me see, you can see this bit, it's not going to focus too well on it. But you see how it's not completely cylindrical. This edge sticks out more, which obviously it's a cutting edge. This edge sticks out more. So if you are probing your X and Y, where it's going to come on either side of this block, you need the edge that sticks out the most that's going to be cutting, because if you do it right here, your program's not going to do it right. It's going to, you're going to overcut your material out. So you need to have that out, and when you hit, and then I don't know how you want to do this, you choose that's safe for you to do it, but when it comes on over, you need to, don't want it to touch the side, because also there's a coating there. That's not going to do anything, so it's going to keep running over until it knows it's there. What you need to do is, so the bit comes here, and when it comes over, you need to spin it. Somehow you choose your way that's safe for you. I'm not going to advocate any of that. Hit over here. Another tip, whenever you swap bits, your X and Y material zeros do not need to change because your material didn't move. There's no need to do that. Now probing for Z, absolutely, because I could have put this bit in, you know, obviously let's act if this didn't exist, I could put it way up here, or maybe it's a really long bit, it's way down here. The program does not know that. There are some people who use these pro collars that from that collar down, they're always the same length for all their bits, so they don't care, they never probe Z. I don't do that. I don't really see the time savings in it because probing Z really doesn't take that long. But when you're in a project doing multiple cuts, only probe your Z and do it in the same spot. So that's why I don't, you know, I don't make my material the exact size of my project. Maybe I'll make it so, you know, I got a 1/2 inch right here and I'll set this on there, or an inch or something like that, and I'll keep using that spot. Maybe you need to make a little mark there or make a mark on the material saying that's where it is, or you can always probe from your bed surface. But make sure bed is has been flattened with flattening bit, so it is all flat all the way across with respect to your machine. Make sure you're always probing the same exact spot from your bed surface. There's times that I do that, there's times that I use from the material surface, it really depends. Also, when you're taking, say, a big thick board and you cut it down to almost nothing in some areas, the board is going to want to lift. So that's another reason why I like to make mine bigger and then screw it down. When I cut my perimeter, I'll just leave tabs, because those really thick boards, when they lose tons of material that fast, and the different, you know, humidity levels and everything else affecting it, they like to lift and warp, and when you're doing something like that, it seems to be more precision work, which means a lot of cleanup work. If not, some of it might be irreparable. You may not be able to recover it. So I think that's all I have with probing. If you think of anything else you want me to cover, I'll cover that. The last thing I was going to go over, which I did go over in a previous video, is whenever you do bring this guy up here, I should have gone over this sooner, is make sure that these are lifted. So that's also part of my process, which is funny that I didn't explain it in the part of my process, but you know, things happen. Because they like to hit here, and I have had where that's hit, I didn't notice, And because that stopped and this part kept going, I was moved this way, and all my straight lines weren't so straight. Didn't work out too well. So make sure you do that. As far as tightening and loosening bits, I know you're supposed to always remember righty tighty, lefty loosey, yada yada yada. I forget it too. Not that I forget what they are, but I just forget looking at the router. So I wrote an L and a T for loosen and tighten. So, and I have a little holder here for my collar wrenches. Press that in. You know, obviously go towards the L for loosen, the T for tighten. Not a big deal. Whenever you have your material there, try to get in the habit of moving this out of the way of your material, or some people have said a sponge or this or that. I just move it out of the way so I just don't have to deal with it. Move it higher, obviously, then do all that. Because sometimes when your bit falls on it, especially softer material, it may ruin it, or say it falls, you freak out, hit this, you may drag across it. Who really knows? Make sure that you do that. Other general maintenance things I would say is to get your 3-in-1 oil and lightly oil your rails. I know they have little spots in them that you can remove little set screws to get more on these from the linear ball bearings. So right here, there's a little screw. There's one on the other side right there. And I believe this one on the back side there. So you can get all that, but you always keep these lightly oiled with 3-in-1 oil, unless there's something else that they approve, but right now that's what it's been. Or else you're gonna possibly get rust or many other things. In general, it's just a good idea. And then keep your machine nice and clean, like, you know, after each series of cuts or before your next series, clean, 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 or keep your dust boot going or anything like that. These machines are very, very well built. But at the end of the day, they're machines and they'll last you as long as you take care of them. So if you don't do preventative maintenance, don't expect them to last you, and don't get upset when they don't, you know? That's all I could think right now for beginner startup. If you guys have any more thoughts, let me know. I will try to answer those questions for you. Hopefully turn this into a little mini series, other things I can think of. If you can think of other things, put them in the comment section. I'll try to get to them as soon as I possibly can. Have fun out there. Be safe with it. And be smart. I mean, if you don't know what's going on or you got questions, feel free to ask. I mean, me or anyone on the forum, and they seem to answer pretty quickly and seem to be pretty nice about it. If you found anything useful in this, please like, subscribe, share, do whatever you can. Absolutely means the world to me. I notice a giant difference. It's huge when someone likes or subscribes or shares or anything like that. I also have an Etsy store with files on there. If you want to see them, I'll have the link down below. Thanks again. This has been Zamora Woodworking with Nick as your host. See you later.